Hi everybody, I am Ray Ryan. I am a writer of science fiction. I'm also a prolific reader, and I also really enjoy looking for and reading books by diverse authors who have different backgrounds. That can be someone who's BIPOC or queer, someone with disabilities, a plus size person, just to have a variety of stories from different people who experience the world differently than I do. To that end, I am going to tell you about books that are coming out in April 2024 that are by diverse authors in the realm of speculative fiction. Speculative fiction is science fiction, fantasy, horror, anything that sort of is encapsulated in like fantasy, sci-fi, has like magic elements to it. It's really a catch-all term for something that is really like not romance or not exactly traditional literary fiction. Really goes under the umbrella of speculative fiction. So these are all authors who have books or novellas coming out in April of 2024. I'm going to start from the top alphabetically and work my way down and give you a little synopsis of each book and when they're going to come out in April. So the first one is To Gaze Upon Wicked Gods by Molly X. Chang. Short synopsis is Ruin lives in a world conquered by invaders who destroy the magic of her people. When an enemy prince discovers her ability to take the life of mortals, he offers her a deal: kill his enemies to secure the safety of her family. But can she trust his promise of a better world for all her people, or will she unwittingly risk betraying her nation to protect her loved ones? This gave me like morally gray, possible enemies to lovers vibes. Kind of hard to tell with the description if we're going to get an enemies to lovers. There is some of that in the back jacket, but definitely morally gray characters going on in a colonized fantasy world. So if you're really into a sort of second world fantasy that has elements of colonization as well as magic and these people being imbued with certain powers from different gods, and also they're like really morally gray, some level of intrigue happening. This is definitely a book to check out. I believe it's also a debut novel for Chang. Could be wrong about that, but I think it is. That comes out on April 16th. The next is Immortal Pleasures by V. Castro. Now, V. Castro has written other books that are very highly rated. This book is considered like an erotic horror. That's what I've been reading in the reviews, is that it is both erotic and horror. But here's a little description of it. Malinali was once the translator for Conquistador Cortez. Long considered a traitor of her people, in the present day, she's now an immortal vampire, avenging conquered peoples by reclaiming their stolen artifacts and returning them to their rightful owners and stewards. While searching for a pair of Aztec skulls, she encounters two men, a horror novelist attracted to her condition, and another immortal who shares her darkness. Despite her immortal condition, these encounters will center on a journey of pleasure and desire and love. So this is definitely like you're getting where the erotic comes in here, when she's got like these two guys that interest her in different ways, and this idea of someone who in the past has done things, has been translated for someone who colonized her people and is now sort of taking her revenge in the present day by using her vampire status to go around and returning artifacts to the rightful stewards of those historical pieces, and then running into these two guys, and because she still wants love and she still wants pleasure and she still has desires, and her sort of journey through that experience and what is really going to satisfy her. From what I've read, if you are not into erotica, do not read this book because you're going to be upset. I'm a big fan, like when something says what it is on the package, you gotta want that, because if you read it and you're like, there's too much sex in this, yeah, they told you that at the beginning. There's sex in it, there's gonna be sex in it. So if you don't want that, then don't read this book. Maybe check out one of her other books that have less erotica in it. But like, don't pick this up and expect that it's not going to have what it tells you what it has on the cover. And if you're into erotica but you're not super into horror, also maybe not the book for you. I don't know how much horror elements there are in it, or if they're just considering her sort of vampire status as the horror element. I'm not entirely sure. But you know, for people who like erotica and horror, this is going to be a marriage of both of those things, and those seem to be the people that really enjoy this book. So bear that in mind. And that comes out the 16th. The next one is called The Court of Wanderers, Silver Under Nightfall by Rin Chupeco, and I apologize if I'm mispronouncing anything. And so this series, called the Reaper series, I have seen the first book going around TikTok a whole bunch, especially queer TikTok, which is where I live, in queer TikTok. And I actually have read about it so much, it is now in my library selection over here. I had to get a new shelf just for my library reads, and that is a problem. Can't possibly read that many books before they're due, but I try, and it's over here in this section. I'm really excited for the first one because I have seen a ton of people who read queer fantasy recommending this book, especially with, like, I believe it has some trans and non-binary characters as well, because it came up on the trans readathon sort of verse. So I'm excited to read it. Here's a little breakdown of the story in general. I'm making the assumption that maybe you haven't read the first one, like I haven't read the first one. So it promises to be a vampire versus bounty hunter fantasy romp. Remy Pendergrass is the son of an elite bounty hunter who sounds like kind of an asshole, and a woman who's rumored to be a vampire, making him half vampire and like a pariah to the like bounty hunter set. And he befriends a vampire couple. They're like gonna get married, I believe. They're fiancés, and runs across them, befriends them, and it really challenges his belief about vampires and what he's been told his entire life. And in book 2, he is really gonna have to choose between the legacy of his father and his mother, now realizing that like the head of the vampires is more than likely his mom. And so there's a lot of like family drama. There's like gothic fantasy, that's a different thing, fantasy, and like a zest of romance in it, which is like my favorite kind of romance. I don't read much romantasy because I like more fantasy than romance, but I do like having some romance in there. I just don't like it being the major plot of the book. So that's why this one really like ticks all my boxes. So I'm really hopeful that it's going to be a fantastic book. And when I do read it, I'll come back on here and give my take on the book. But yeah, if you're really into gothic fantasy with a side of romance, this is the one to check out. It comes out on the 2nd of April. The next one is by one of my favorite authors. It's by P. Djeli Clark, who has written a number of different works and quite a few novellas. The Master of Jinn, A Master of Jinn, is in the Dead Jinn series, and it's one of my all-time favorite books. What P. Djeli Clark does is he does like alternate history, historical fantasy. So it usually takes place in the past, but it's a alternate history where things have gone differently. Maybe there's steam power in A Master of Jinn, the Jinn came into the world, but it takes place in like, I think it's like the 1920s and in Egypt. And this one, give you a little rundown. It says that Aveen, the Eviscerator, is a deadly assassin in an ancient city resurrected with no memories and lives by 3 simple rules. When the festival of the Clockwork King turns the city to chaos, Aveen is confronted by the past she's forgotten and a vow given long ago. So this one promises to be a really interesting, like, resurrected assassins who lost their memory during the resurrection, and their job is to do these like moralistic killings. Like, there has to be a good reason to kill somebody, but once you take on the job, you have to complete it or risk death yourself. And when the city is turned upside down, she's confronted with the past that she lost when she died and has to reconcile that. It promises to be a fast-paced, creative fantasy world with fascinating characters, and I base this entirely on his previous works, where he manages to create very quickly a super interesting fantasy world that sounds like it would be complicated, but he does it very seamlessly. And I've read most of his work, and from where he started and as he continues to grow as a writer, the evolution has just been really great to watch. And so I will be reading this one, and it comes out on the 6th. The next one is by H.E. Edgman, and it is called Merciless Saviors. This is the second in a duology, the Ouroboros duology. And the rundown is Jem Eccles is a non-binary Seminole teen who's never been very good at being human. When they find out they're a reincarnated god with a sordid past and many enemies among the gods, their inner demons and vivid nightmares make more sense. In this conclusion to the duology, Jem and their team, have to restore the balance amongst the gods and risk losing what's left of their humanity. In the first book, they are learning that they are this reincarnated god, and they're I believe they're in high school. It is a young adult fantasy. And when a person claiming to be the god of death tries to kill them, they are saved by a person who seems to know quite a bit about them. It turns out they themselves are a reincarnated god and used to be their lover. So they are dealing with learning that they are a god and that they have many enemies amongst the gods, and sort of like a found family trying to figure out how to stay alive in this situation. So if you're really into queer, trans, and non-binary books, young adult, and with the reincarnated gods trope, this is definitely one to check out. I always like these kinds of books, and it's really nice to see that kind of representation, especially in young adult. So I'm definitely gonna check that one out, and that comes out the 16th. Next one is Sheen Lend by Darcy Littlebadger. And I apologize if I am mispronouncing anything there, but this is a prequel to the previous book, Elatsue, and again I apologize if I'm mispronouncing that. And it's a prequel, and it centers on Shane, who tracks down missing people with the help of her mom and their ghost dog, which is cool. When her mother and a local boy go missing, Shane and a ragtag group of friends and family who are maybe a bit distrustful, come together to search through the world and through time to find their loved ones. This is another young adult fantasy with resilient characters teaming up to save family, even though there are complicated familial relationships happening in there. So if you've read the previous book, this is now a prequel to that book. So if you're into young adult fantasy, that's one to check out, and that comes out on the 16th as well. The next one is by Shijin Lue, very popular science fiction writer. This is called A View from the Stars, and it is a collection of fiction and nonfiction essays. It promises to shed some light on the person as an author, and their love of science fiction, and their process, as well as with the short stories, show their work over time, how it's changed, and how they've evolved. So if you're really into this author, this is a great one to pick up. It's going to really give you a glimpse into more of who they are and their process, and that it comes out on the 2nd of April. The next one is Dragon Rider by Taran Matharu, and the basic premise here is that Jai is a hostage in the royal Sabine court after his father led a failed rebellion. When chaos disrupts in the court, Jai flees with a handmaiden and a stolen dragon hatchling. Jai will have to unlock the secrets of soul bonding with a dragon to secure his safety and seek revenge. The little broader description is that Jai is the son of a local tribal leader who tried to rebel against the court and was killed, and he's been taken kind of as a royal hostage to dissuade other people from doing the same thing. And the prince is going to marry someone from another nation who has these dragons and are the only people that know how to do the soul bonding with the dragon. And when they come to the court, intrigue ensues, and Jai takes the opportunity to run away with one of the handmaidens of the opposing court and a stolen dragon. And so while they're on the run and being hunted, he has to figure out how to do this soul bonding so that he can save himself, the handmaiden, and seek his revenge against the Sabine court. So this is a really immersive epic fantasy. So if you're really into these broad fantasy worlds that dig really deep and are like really expansive with dragons and magic and then revenge plots, this is a book for you. And it promises to be just like really action-packed, hopefully. That's what I'm getting from the feels of it. And it comes out on April 2nd. The next and last one is The Practice, the Horizon, and the Chain, and this is by Sofia Samatar. I'm very excited about this. This is the only science fiction that I have on the list. I hope there's more. I wish there were more. Science fiction is like my jam, obviously, as a science fiction writer. It is what I love the most. And we don't quite get as many as we do in fantasy and young adult. But this one looks really interesting, especially when I saw that it was written in the vein of River Solomon and Ursula K. Le Guin, because I love both of those authors. Ursula K. Le Guin is just like one of my all-time favorite authors, so super excited to see that. And then River Solomon is similar in that they really delve into ideas of identity and gender. What does it mean to be a woman or a man or both or neither? So together it makes sense that it would create a book that delves deeper into societal questions. But to give you a background on what it's actually about, it follows a boy raised among the chained, people who are shackled to endless labor in the hull of a ship. When he's plucked from the hold and brought to the ship's professors, he's told he's going to receive an education. As he grows closer to an ambitious professor, they navigate the realities of their respective world and how to harness the chains that subjugate them and can set them free. So with those vibes, I'm really thinking it's going to be something that is really looking into how subjugation as an institutional power shapes people and groups and communities. And also I'm sure it will delve into some of those sort of morally gray, like once you are levered up from the bottom of society, how do you subjugate those who are now below you, and what are the like morals and ethics around power, the accumulation of it, and how does it affect these different various groups of people. I love these kinds of things. These are like my favorite. So I'm definitely going to read The Practice, the Horizon, and the Chain. And that comes out on April 16th. It's really great to pre-order any of these books if you are interested in them. Pre-order them because pre-orders are super important for authors to get on the bestsellers list, because it all comes in on one day and it can really elevate them on the bestsellers list. Unfortunately, the New York Times bestseller list isn't entirely based on just sales. It is also curated, which is why you sometimes, you know, certain books do exceptionally well for reasons you don't understand, because the book is either not that good or not that interesting. It's because there are those institutional powers at play that, you know, can get to on these lists, and therefore it really gets people to read them because they end up on these New York Times lists, which give you the idea that they are there because of their popularity, but that is not the case. There are, however, other lists that are based more on actual sales figures, and it's really important for authors to get on those lists, and so pre-ordering them is really important. If like buying all these books is not there for you, you can tell I'm really into library books. You can go onto your library and request these books. So I do this almost every month. I take this list. If I don't see that they're going to be available soon, I ask for them, and that's usually like the bottom of the page somewhere. The prospectus is generally where it's at. You can request these books and then they will go and get them, and they will become available at your library, and you'll be like at the top of the list. It's a great way to support them as well. People don't think that libraries support authors. It's untrue. Getting their name out there is equally as important, and not everyone can afford all of these books. Again, libraries, do the library thing. So yeah, check them out, pre-order them, get them from your library. If you want this in a list format, You can go to my website. It's rayryanwrites.com. It's a mouthful. And it's Ray, R-A-E, Ryan, R-Y-A-N, and then writes.com. And you'll find all of this in a list format. If you sign up for my newsletter, I will send this to you every month, and you will have new and upcoming diverse authors and their books coming out every month in your email. And if you don't want to be emailed, they'll just be on the website, so you can just check it out, save it, bookmark it. I would appreciate it if you signed up for my newsletter. That would be lovely. So when my book comes out someday, you'll get to hear about it, and it'll be really cool. So thank you, and I hope you have the day that you deserve.